I'm just laughing as I'm thinking about the people that are on the same side of the fence on cryptocurrency in Senate and Congress, and the people that are on the other side of the fence, and it's just such an unlikely hodgepodge of allegiances. It's really funny, especially as I read some of the inevitable back and forth that's going on in the chat here. Maybe we opened up a little bit of a can of worms here, but it is true. And one guy mentioned in the chat that our former President Trump, he actually did make a statement that was decidedly anti-Bitcoin. I mean, that now he made that statement after he was out of office, but he did make that statement, which I found actually a bit surprising, since his son has definitely made some statements that seems to be very pro-stonks movement, generally pro-crypto, so I'm not quite sure what's understanding, but he did make that statement. So here we have the former president who's expressed severe skepticism towards Bitcoin, right along with Elizabeth Warren, right? And then here we have Ted Cruz on the same side as the likes of an Andrew Yang, right? So
so weird, Steve. The people, it's so weird. Cryptocurrency is like the weirdest divider of people, in the sense that it brings together the most unlikely suspects. And I don't understand why it doesn't. I just don't get why some people don't like it. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if they just don't understand it, or they're afraid. I don't know. But some people. And typically they're from an older age bracket.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that has a ton to do with whether people get crypto or not. Because I have yet to see a real young person be anti-crypto. I don't see it.
Yeah, good point. It's definitely a big generational thing. That's one of the predominant factors here.
Yeah.
Rock Lobster coming in with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Rock Lobster. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys, for your take. You're very welcome. Someone else says Steele for Prez 2024. Man, I wouldn't want to take that on. But I will say this. I have, in all honesty, running for public office is something that I have never completely taken off the table. It's always something that's fascinated me to a certain degree. I don't know if I'd ever have a chance in hell of winning, because I would run as I'd run as an independent. I wouldn't feel comfortable running in either one of the major parties, even if that's for, let's say, an alderperson position or a state senator position. But
so funny that independents can't get elected.
I mean, they can. It's just few and far between that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they have. But
I wish that was more prevalent than it is.
Yeah, I know. And once in a while, you get one that can upset the apple cart. But it's also one of these things too, where my personal evolution was I used to be definitely, let's just say, more partisan on one side growing up, and I always thought that I would consider myself in that one side. And then I really started to challenge myself and humble myself and realize that I had, to a more of a degree than I wanted to admit to myself, a victim of my own confirmation bubble of bias, right? And so between all my friends in the music industry and all my friends that are artists like me, we're all parroting the same shit every day to each other, and there's just this assumed sense of intellectual superiority without having to justify that assumed sense to each other, right? So when I started questioning the validity of that general assumption, I started discovering things and challenging some of my own assumed takes on things. Then I quickly became the ire and the enemy of some of my previous friends for looking at things, making a conscientious effort of looking at things as objectively as I could, wherein I just started doing my best to let the data dictate what my opinions were rather than a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of the times people get stuck in these bubbles of confirmation bias in everything in life, you know. And for my entire life, I've always tried to go outside or against the grain and think really differently, and like sometimes to my own self-detriment. Like I've pressed myself in life to like really contemplate far outside of what the norm is and what is what you're hearing in your own personal echo chamber. I try to do that every day, and that's why I do spend a fair bit of time on Twitter, but I try and like on Sundays I'll take the entire day off. I might post something in the morning or whatever, but I'll take days off of the internet and just go into the country, just like escape from technology for a little bit.
Yeah. And it's what's interesting. I totally agree, Nick. And what's helped me too in terms of engaging with people and people that I've known throughout the years, even or even new people that seem to espouse super strong opinions politically that I don't agree with. Before I fire back or get fired up, I take a deep breath and I think about my own evolution of my own opinions over the years, right? And then I consider perhaps the age of the person I'm talking to, right? So let's say
100%.
So let's say I'm talking to a 23-year-old girl that I'd be out on a date with or something like that, and then she'd be going
You're going on dates with 23-year-olds?
Yeah.
Dang, awesome. Good for you, man.
Maybe I accidentally spilled some beans there about myself.
No, that's dope.
Yeah.
I'm going on dates with 47-year-olds, so good for you, bro.
It's so funny that we almost have, we went in split directions there.
Yeah, we did.
But it's one of the, I don't even know where to go now. But it's one of these things too, where when you're listening to those opinions before, I start, it's just not worth it. It's just like for me, I can listen and have a conversation with someone who absolutely is seething full of hatred towards the former president, and I can have a reasonable or not a pleasant, rather, I wouldn't say reasonable, a pleasant conversation with someone like that, and I can also have a pleasant conversation with someone who's a huge proponent and loves their previous president. I don't let their opinion on that one way or another completely dictate the experience and the engagement that we are having in the present moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I've gotten to the point with politics, and I've kind of mentioned this on former shows. I used to be friends with the guy who created Anonymous, and he's out of prison now, but he was in prison for a long time. And back in high school, man, I was the most politically active kid, because it was right after 9/11, and like everybody was going to war, and everybody hated George Bush.
Yeah.
It was just like a time, and I was very politically active.
Yes,
I was going to protests, and I was like 17 or maybe 15.
Yeah, I think we probably had similar trajectories, because and this is funny. I had, by the way, guys, I had no idea this episode was going to go this direction, but this is how it goes. It's the nature of a podcast format. But yeah, I had a similar trajectory. I was actually in the streets protesting the first Iraq War way back in the day. Whereas is that kind of the same era you're talking about?
Yeah, of course. And by the way, which we were correct for protesting, by the way.
Right.
It wasn't like we were right about that.
Right.
I just want to mention that. And I trust me, I was hanging out with I was hanging out with anarchists.
Oh, boy.
Like white kids with dreadlocks and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. I never kicked it with the Trustafarians. Good proceed.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is, over the years, my political opinions have shifted to the point where now I have more money than I could ever know what to do with, and I just don't care. I literally just don't care. I hardly ever go on Facebook anymore, because all it is people bitching about, when the former president was in office, it was a disaster. It was a dumpster fire on Facebook every day. It was just madness.
You mean you're not saying specifically an opinion on the former president of the job?
No.
You're saying the social landscape was.
Yes,
right.
The social landscape was just an absolute dumpster fire. It was
right.
just people who were upset, people who were, it was just mad.
It never stopped. Every day. Yeah.
It was every day. And that was when I got to the point where I was like, look, I just don't care. I literally just don't care anymore. I don't care. And I'm basically at that point right now in my life where I've accomplished everything I want to accomplish. I have everything I need. There is absolutely no reason for me to turn on Fox or CNN or any of the major news outlets and figure out what's going on in the political world, because it ultimately I tell these people, my family. My family, by the way, is very split down the middle. I have half of my family is extremely left and crazy left. By the way, those people are no fun. That half of my family they're not a good time.
Careful, Nick. But yeah.
The other half of my family, who were really big Trump supporters, they're crazy, but they're a good time. I do have fun with them. So I visit both. I like them. It is what it is. But where am I going with this? Yeah, I just don't care. I just don't care.
No, I kind of I hear what you're saying, because I'm trying to navigate this conversation, without being partisan, because I know that I want to be respectful and sensitive to viewers. I know we've got viewers that lean left and lean right. I don't care which way you lean, guys. It's not going to inhibit my esteemed opinions about any of you guys. Okay, just for the record. But I had noticed a similar societal observation that you did, in terms of most of my friends that I grew up with. They're far left. They're basically American Marxists, and I've noticed that with at least the kind of good old Republican conservative types, which I do not describe myself as. I'm not either. But at least I could just hang out with them and laugh about stuff and not have to worry about offending someone inadvertently every other sentence that came out of my mouth. You know what I mean?
They are a good time. Then they like to drink too, which is fun.
Here's the thing. It's just when we get into kind of this purity spiraling in this cancel culture stuff, to me, the most important thing when assessing your opinions about sentiment someone lays forth or somebody's character is the context and the intention, right? So context is obviously incredibly important. What context was the statement in question made, and what context was made? And secondly, what was the intention? Did they mean anything bad by it? No. They didn't mean anything bad by it. Maybe something was said a bit more clumsily than it should have been, but they didn't mean anything nefarious by it. They didn't mean to offend anybody by it. And so, we all need to give each other a lot more breathing room. I think most people are fairly reasonable in terms of they don't want to live in a society where they're constantly feeling hawked over and micromanaged over every little thing that they say, right?
I think that's the major issue of the internet right now, is there's just large corporations that are trying to like micromanage everybody, and it's like I want to go back, almost to the early 2000s where it was a crazy time to be online, but at least it was like profitable.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I feel like a lot of these like big corporations, and we found this out too during the YouTube adpocalypse, right? Like they thought that it would be in YouTube's best benefit to like get rid. They lost all of these major sponsorships and stuff like that. In doing so, they made everything like family friendly.
Yeah.
But the money hasn't come back.
Yeah.
And like there's money out there that's floating around, and I think if people just had the balls, no pun intended.
No pun intended. Right. I knew that was coming. Yeah.
to be allowed to speak their mind on a platform that encouraged more open rhetoric, I think that I just think that the expression of free thought is probably also the closest thing you can get to perfect monetary system where people can make as much profit as they possibly can by freely sharing open opinions and ideas. And as soon as you start to stifle that, you also like turn off the money flow. The money flow gets diminished. And I don't know. One day they might realize this. There's been a few failed attempts at changing this. With I can think of a few social media platforms that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But I think we both can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I really like, dude. I really want to. If my money ever becomes like crazy money, I want to like start a social media platform that may be centered around crypto or something like that.
Yeah. I have to say, for the gripes that I may have at times surrounding some of the drama within crypto Twitter, it's nothing compared to when I log back in on Facebook. It's nothing compared to that. I don't miss Facebook at all. The only reason I ever check on Facebook is because I have to check my messages and keep up with the listings and related to my small business presence on there. But I don't even bother to look at anything else aside from my business page on Facebook. I check my messages from customers on my business page. I check my listings on my business page on Facebook, and I'm out. I've been so much happier completely checking out of Facebook. I've got to say personally. One last thought that I wanted to express on this whole kind of political tangent, socio-political tangent that we went on, and the reason why I wanted to express it too is because it sounds like you and I came out of some similar trajectories. I think you could relate here. I think I found it to be a very fascinating observation over time. But so back in the day, I opposed the Middle Eastern wars and interventions, and I was actually protesting the street about it. I'm obviously dating myself a bit here, guys. This is early 2000s. And then freedom of speech and being against censorship. These are between being against unnecessary interventionalist conflict and being very pro freedom of speech. Used to be two stalwart positions that most often associated with the left. Would you say that's safe to say back in the day?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So,
sure.
And that's kind of where I, by default, ended up being. And I just think it's interesting, and regardless of whatever you feel about the most recent, or the president before the one we had, he ran distinctly against, on foreign policy, against the neoconservative foreign policy, against the Bush doctrine, against the Iraq War, called it one of the biggest disasters, biggest blunders, worst decisions. And then he also made scaled down the military-industrial complex a bit anyway, and made some very stern statements about the excessive greed and the lust for war at the military-industrial complex. So there were lucid moments. I'm not saying our last president was the most anti-war guy, because he wasn't, but there were moments where I swear I could when the former president would be talking about the military industrial complex, it sounded like it could have been right out of Bernie Sanders or Dennis Kucinich's mouth. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And then I don't think he ever got any credit for that. And I was just like, to my friends, I'm like, no, we like that. And they're like, no, we hate that. I'm like, why do we hate that now? I'm confused. And then the embrace from the left for censorship now, to me, is absolutely bonkers and disturbing. I can't wrap my head around it, Nick. And so
it's like it's flipped.
It's
We've
flipped
again.
And so when my friends, say that I've changed, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, y'all changed. Anyway, I'm just gonna. I think the only reason I brought it up because I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
100%.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, we're gonna move beyond that. I hope we can all still get along just like we did before we went on that tangent. I think we navigated actually pretty well, and I think we've got a very groovy, easygoing community here that's not too uptight and can get along with each other just fine.